Welcome everyone from all over the world. I think we have people in Europe, Hawaii, North America, South America, Australia, and a ton of other locations the world over. I'm Ian Walsh. We're going to take you through Distance Between Dreams in one of the most historic winter seasons on record in my lifetime. And to join me, we have in the top right corner here, we have Mr. Rob Bruce, the director of the film. He was in on the whole process. Lower left corner on your screen is Kevin Wallis, a world-renowned surf forecaster that is going to help highlight how monumental this season really was and what it stacks up to against the other seasons. And the bottom right screen is Chris Christenson, one of the best shapers on the planet and a creative genius who helped modify the boards to take us to places our brains could only visualize during this historic winter. So the first thing we're going to touch on today is to kind of go through some of the aspects to what made this film so special. One question I had when I first saw the film, and then even watching that segment back now, Rob, what like inspired you to want to take the people underwater with me to see visually what it looks like when you are getting pounded? That was something really different about your vision with this film.
The whole approach to the film was to get as close to everything as we could. And that meant also going underwater with you when you're getting pounded. And it seemed like something we could do. None of us on the camera crew were nearly as fit as you, but we could hold our breaths.
How do you, as a director, like, first of all, talk one of your photographers into like a handful of stitches on his forehead after getting pounded at Jaws with me to capture those impactful shots?
I can be very convincing. No, I mean, I think we were excited and we felt safe. Like it wasn't. We kind of, I don't know, maybe we were deluded and caught up in the moment. But again, I just wanted to bring people into the lineup. I just felt like up until that moment, even some of the top surfers on the WSL didn't know what big wave surfers were really going through and how hard they trained. I think we were safe, and I think the outcome was worth it. Like it's probably the best part of the movie, and it's my responsibility to connect your story to non-surfers.
Think about doing like a spin class where you're riding as hard as you can on a bike and your heart rate is diving out of your neck and trying to hit you in the eyeball, and you're getting really fatigued, your lactic acid is building up, and then think about what it would feel like to be tumbling in a car accident and just violently thrown out of the window. That's kind of what it feels like on these gigantic waves that you get caught inside on or you fall on. It is just a really violent, fast-paced, powerful motion. And, a lot of what's happening is you're just trying to slow the whole situation down and focus on containing your breath, your anxiety, your urge to get up, and try to control that, because all that does is take away some of your very precious air. And at the end of the day, it's pretty simple though. The objective is just get to the surface by any means necessary, and however you got to do it, you got to get up. And to Chris's point, like, to highlight a little bit of my annoyance, like even after winning the Jaws contest and without a doubt riding the best wave I've ever ridden in my entire life, I came in, Chris was at the harbor to congratulate me and hug me. And as he's hugging me and releasing, I'm like, hey, a couple things I think we could switch up on this board and make it feel a little spicier, a little more responsive. So I think I can definitely be a little overbearing with that, admittingly, but it does, I think, help keep me progressing forward and not getting stagnant.
And during that contest, right after you got that 10 and Rob sent me a text, he's like, hey, $10. He's gonna say he wants to change the rocker on that board.
Which was
And I
spot
was
on.
just like, oh, the wave of the century. And I'm like,
I never got my $10.
yeah. And and another thing in that contest too is that I get pretty involved, but I'll never forget too is Ian, he's always out there trying to get the wave of his life. But I had a walkie-talkie with his brother, and then in between heats, I talked to Ian during that contest, and we actually got in a little verbal spar on what board he should use. And he's like, I want to use a 9/8, and I had a different view from the cliff. I go, no, it's picking up, it's getting bigger, and it's getting windier. You're going to need a length to paddle in. And he's like, yeah, the West Pole's working. It'd be good if you can get under the hood with a 9/8, but I think you're going to need every bit of your 10-4. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I go, put Todd on. I get his brother Todd. I go, make sure he puts the 10-4 under him right now. Like, make sure he goes in the water with the 10-4. He's like, I got it. And then, sure enough, that's when he got that wave in that next heat.
Yeah, or Luke, that was, I remember that kind of going back and forth with you right before the semifinals. It was absolutely phenomenal conditions. And I was like, I think I can get it. I've always wanted to play with, riding a smaller board and bigger surf to have more maneuverability. But Chris hit the nail on the head, put me in my place, sent me out on a 10-4, and the rest is history. The next question from Chris Cote, legend in his own right in the surf world. Does Ian have a song that musically captures El Nino? Iron Maiden, Hallowed Be Thy Name. That captures El Nino pretty well. I have kind of a mixed opinion for this one. If you're going to get absolutely smoked by a rogue set and you're pretty far out at the peak and one just happens to break a good 100 yards out farther than you, then I like to dive as deep as I can. A lot of times I'll get momentum, stand up on my board, dive as deep as I can. And as I dive down, once I know I'm just going to get annihilated and vaporized by that wave, I try to like roll back up into the impact of the wave and let it just take me with it. And hopefully I recognize the pressure change in the texture of the water, and I'll come up and get like a little violent flop out of the water and get a quick breath, and which can be kind of like a second breath through the process. So I tend to like do a little bit of both. I take a deep dive, and then as I'm going with it, I try to like mahi my way back up, or dolphin your way back up to the surface a bit to try to roll closer to that surface and get a breath or two while you're being violently tumbled. I actually do a ton of biking to keep my cardio level where I want it and build on the base that I have. Biking's my number one go-to for cardio, and I found a good balance of mixing in the breath work, the gym work, the bike work for cardio, and now the big component I've really added is recovering a little better and putting more time into that. I usually do a big block of training in the last part of September, right through October and into the beginning part of November. And that's usually my prep for winter. And my goal there is to be fit enough to get pounded and thrown around violently all winter right into February. And then I want to feel strong in February and not like I'm hanging on by a thread.
El Nino it's a periodic warming of the equatorial waters in the North Pacific, and specifically the eastern and central Pacific. And when it reaches a certain threshold, it gets basically a degree above normal in the Celsius scale. That's when we would classify it as an El Nino season, or an El Nino conditions. And sure enough, on cue in 2016. We hit January, and we'd had some swells earlier in the year, but really as soon as we hit January, I think a really pretty solid swell around the 4th or 5th, I think I want to say, and then basically it's like every week after that. Particularly that swell right around the middle of the month, January 15th, where it was probably it was the biggest clean swell of the season, and it just had these buttery conditions out there. I mean, that was a lot more than Maui glass. I don't know, what do you even call that? 22 feet at 20 seconds, something like that too. And those are once in 10 years type of events, maybe. once in 15-year type of events. And then again, to pair it with that light wind, gosh, I don't know, once a quarter century type of event.
Yeah, that was as good as conditions get, and you hit the nail on it there. It's like it started right after the holidays. January 4th, big swell. January 10th, big swell. January 15th, the swell you're speaking about now, which was arguably one of the biggest paddle days ever. And then January 27th and 28th was another giant day with light winds. So I think you spoke earlier that you might have some animations to kind of show the viewer and kind of talk them through a little bit about what we see as a surfer forecasting a swell and what you guys see as a professional forecaster meteorologist.
Yeah, and so what this is showing is that one storm that's actually set up the swell for January 15th. And when you see these purple blobs, that's indicating we have very large wave heights within the North Pacific. Once you get into that purple realm, that means we've got wave heights of around 45, even, the silvers, it's up around 50 feet, which is a super, super significant storm and very significant swell. I remember looking at the satellite image of that storm, either January 13th or 14th. And we knew it was going to be a big swell already. But when I saw that satellite image, it's like, oh man, this thing is going to be a monster.
At this point in Hawaii, every professional surfer, photographer, and filmmaker was completely out of gas. The surf had been pumping for weeks. We were completely exhausted. And you can't, as a cameraman or photographer, you can't complain to an athlete that you're tired, particularly a big wave surfer, because they're risking their lives. They're putting out this massive physical effort, and you can't complain. But we were so cooked. Like, we were out of money. Me and Clark Fiennes, who was the producer, were essentially at this point shooting everything ourselves with local filmmakers and trading clips and handing over drives and not sleeping and making sandwiches and losing cards and losing lens caps and like on and off boats and jet skis and getting up at 3 a.m. And it was just, we were so done. But then we load up and we go on this crazy trip. I think I checked in 27 cases, and we travel for 2 days, literally by plane. Like, what am I? I'm alone, and I'm carrying with 4 cameras. I have 2 arms and 2 feet, and only 2 of those can operate a camera. And Ian is exhausted. John has been surfing just as hard, and he's exhausted. We are all totally fried. We get to this wave, we get in the water, we're filming, and I have to say, like, this is where the world-class athlete really showed itself, because they wouldn't stop surfing. They would not get out of the water. And at one point, our water cameraman, Darren Crawford, and our still photographer, Zach Noyle, they got in the boat and they were done. And they just wrapped themselves around their housings in the rain and just slept there for 2 hours. Like, everybody was cooked, but Ian and John just kept lapping this wave. We've all filmed surfing. We all agree on what the camera lineup's going to be based on waves that we've seen before. And so you guys take off. I think each of you guys got one wave, and you basically just first surfed the first section and a half. And we were positioned perfectly for that. And I can't remember if it was you or John, but then one of you connected the wave all the way. And I just remember standing on the boat and just watching you guys go further than I've ever seen anybody surf by double. And I grabbed the radio because I'm like, oh my God, we're not set up for this wave right now. Like, we can't cover this from beginning to end. And I grabbed the wave, and I just see Eric Knudsen and Elliot running down the beach. Like, they just have their stuff and they're just running with all the gear down this beach in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, because everybody realized, like, oh my God, this is crazy. We've never shot a wave this long before.
John and I both recognized really quickly how special that day was at that wave. And that's once in a lifetime surf. It really was. And that'll be one of the best days of barreling waves I'll ever have in my entire life. He literally rode the barrel like the whole entire wave, like fell right into the barrel, didn't even have 1 minute in open air on the face, and stayed in the barrel for the entirety of the whole wave. I mean, the level of surfing he put on that day is really hard to explain seeing that in person. There's literally only one John Florence on the face of the earth, and it was so obvious to me that day that he was going to win a world title that year. I've been looking at other locations. Specifically, this film does lead in to the potential for another project like this, and it is something that I would love to do again with Rob. So, Rob, that's a good one for you. When do you think we're going to see another project like this?
We did do a lot of research prepping this movie to figure out if there was another Jaws out there, and there just might be. I think, you know, movies aren't inexpensive to make if you want to make them this way, and so you never know. Right now is a little bit tricky to get into production, but maybe this is a really good time to go find a budget. But there's waves out there, so hopefully, you never know.
Hopefully soon. That could be coming. Could be. We've been definitely exploring and hoping to find what could be the next Jaws location somewhere else on the planet. So with that, we were going to close this out, and we want to thank you guys that have joined us here live, and for anyone that views this later in the week on the edited version of this. We appreciate you guys watching. We appreciate everyone that has tuned in and already seen the film, and we want to welcome anyone that's going to see it for the first time. And we're really proud to share this project with you and give you a glimpse into what the big wave surfing world has to offer. And for anyone that is just getting on here now, you can watch Distance Between Dreams on Red Bull TV, and we're excited to share that with you guys. So thank you for having us, and we hope you guys enjoy the film.